Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the New Ways of Being podcast. My name is Raymond Posch, and I am the host of the podcast. This is the first episode, and it serves as an introduction for what New Ways of Being is all about. I am also a voice for love and for the evolution of human consciousness. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about me. Some of you will know me as the host of Our Spiritual Life podcast, and that podcast has been in existence for almost 4 years. It's in its fourth year, and it is all about spirituality in general. It introduces people to many different approaches to spirituality, independent of religion. And it also, in many of the past episodes, it digs into specific aspects of spirituality or specific resources to really explore them in much more depth. I am also the author of the book, Awakening to Wholeness. And I had a long career in IT and project management. But I am totally dedicated to my own spiritual and conscious evolution and to being a way shower who shows and shares new ways of being with all others who are interested. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about new ways of being, and I will be digging more in depth into that throughout this episode. But first, New Ways of Being will be very different than Our Spiritual Life. The two podcasts are very different. Episodes in this one will be in video as well as in audio. I will talk about spiritual ideas and concepts, but in this podcast, I will spend more time in every episode helping people step into these new ideas, these new ways of being, and in a way that lets you do that right now. Now, I am a synthesist. That means I bring together different ideas, and sometimes whole new ideas come out of that. And I help people at different places in their spiritual evolution. I've learned the importance of holding space. Now, this is usually it's in very spiritual terms, but it really applies to personal growth in general and to ways of being in general. But in holding space for people wherever they are in their personal journey without judgment. And that's important. So why do you need New Ways of Being, the podcast? Well, let me give you a few things to think about, at least. Number one, I will examine new ways of being that can change your experience of life, perhaps dramatically for the better. In doing so, I draw on and explain teachings from many resources to make it easy for you. Now, these new ways of being that I will be talking about, they can influence changes in the world for the better. Now, that will be one person at a time, but I believe this is something that all of us can do. New ways of being give us, I know that many people want to make a difference in the world. And the key idea about this is to give people new ways to think about how to be in the world in order to help bring about that change. And some of the new ways of being that I will be talking about are big breakthroughs, I think. They're not just, some of the changes that I will talk about are small changes. They're very easy and quick to do. Some are bigger changes in how we are being in the world. And they can be easy as well, but some may require some evolution in your understanding and your thinking about those new ways of being. But I believe that all people who are on the spiritual path should be learning about these new ways of being. You will hear me talk a lot about our divine nature and awakening. And I'm going to explore these two particular ideas in some depth in episode 2, because they are important and are a foundation for understanding new ways of being. But let me point out to you right now, right here, that we have, let me put it this way, the universe or God, whatever name you choose to use for that, tells us through both old and modern messengers some key messages, which I believe are truths. And so I'm going to read 4 of these that some of which are taken verbatim from some other resources, and some are paraphrased, I guess I'd say. Number 1, awakening is not about changing yourself. It is about changing how you think about yourself. Now, this is a big message here. And by the way, that quote was taken from the book Awaken the Species, or it's Conversations with God, book 4, and the subtitle is Awaken the Species. And that book is by Neil Donald Walsh. And of course, in his books that are dialogues, that are conversations with God, those are channeled conversations. So, but that's a very important point, because most people believe, I got to go through all of this changing of myself and learning to behave in a new way and to think in a new way. And in some regards, that's true. But when we understand that it's about changing how we think about ourselves, it can make a huge difference. Now, I'm going to clarify this just a little bit more. Another common message is this: you are a part of the divine, of universal love, God, the one, the all that is, or the one consciousness. Again, whatever name or way of describing the intelligence or consciousness of the universe. And it comes from all religions, and almost all spiritual masters talk from a basis about that message. Now, in the case of Christianity, for example, that requires some understanding. It certainly is very true that Jesus emphasized that teaching. You are part of the divine. You are part of God. But many churches themselves, as organizations, don't do a very good job of teaching that. So I'll make that a point. Here's another one. Now, this is a quote from Deepak Chopra that was fairly recent. He said, "You are consciousness itself." And I will probably have a chance to explain all about what Deepak Chopra was where that was coming from and how that led to that specific point. But you are consciousness itself. And then another message is this. It kind of goes along with why you need to change your thinking about yourself. And again, from the book Awaken the Species, God said, "You are whole, complete, and perfect as you are. And you are worthy and capable of creating and experiencing a wonderful life." Now, lots of people don't believe that statement, that you are whole, complete, and perfect as you are. So I will be talking about that in more depth, and probably beginning in more in episode 2. But I believe, because that message is from God, and from the understanding that each one of us is a part of the divine, if we can really believe that, then we can begin to understand the statement. We are whole, complete, and perfect as we are. And we are also, because we are part of God, we are worthy. And we are fully capable of creating our own life in a wonderful way. So lots more to come about that. I hope these messages strike home with you. But just based on the emphasis there that we are of a divine nature, and we are fully capable of awakening to that fact that we are part of the divine. Let me take a few minutes here, because I want to emphasize in New Ways of Being the experience of these new ways. So let me take a few minutes here just to give you a taste of what that might mean in my episodes. So I'm going to take a few minutes here, just very briefly, to perhaps help you experience those ideas just briefly. So let me dive into this. Now, most people believe they have a soul, and at least they have a vague idea of what the soul is. Some people struggle to understand that, but again, we'll dig into that more later. Most people also have some understanding that there are multiple selves within each one of us, such as the normal self with its personality through which we experience life. But we know also that we have a soul, or some people call that the true inner self. We have an ego, we have shadow aspects, etc. So with that in mind, now I'd like you to imagine that you can step into the part of yourself that is divine and therefore is already awakened. So I'm asking you, do that now. In your imagination, step into the part of you that is awake. And in that part of you, know that you are a part of universal consciousness, the divine or pure source energy. And if you feel resistance to that idea, just let the resistance go for now. Don't question your divine self. Simply know it as your truth. Now, I'd like you to feel the divinity that is that part of you, that is your soul. Feel your awakeness, your ability to know that you are part of the divine. Feel the love that you are. Feel the light that you radiate. And as I say these words, do you feel a growing aliveness and even joy? I hope you do. Feel that now. And feel the power within you, the power to be, to create, to connect to all of life. Continue to feel those feelings for just a little while longer. Now, isn't that simple yet powerful? To me, it is. And of course, I've been practicing this uh, awakening and going through this awakening process, but specifically practicing it for some time. And let me say a few more words that might help you here. Let me point out that when I say in your imagination, to imagine, the one thing that I had to learn is that imagination is not just daydreaming or something momentary and fleeting. That's a nice little idea that I just imagined. Imagination is much more than that. It is a tool for inner exploration and also for inner transformation. And if you choose to be what you imagined, you will begin to change. And that depends, of course, on your level of commitment to the change. Now, that particular point, the points about imagination and the need to really decide that you're going to change, I'm sure I will talk about much more in future episodes, but I hope that was a good experience for you. And we will be doing many similar types of things in future episodes, and in many cases, we'll go into a deeper or longer exercise. But let me go on for now, because this is an introduction to the podcast. So what new ways of being will I be talking about in the podcast? Well, I've got a list here of 13 or 14 ways of being that I came up with as I was thinking about this and jotting my thoughts down. And this list is not any kind of fixed hard list. Wouldn't be the same for any other spiritual podcaster or teacher. And these new ways of being that I'm going to list for you require some explanation. There's no hard definition for these. I'm going to give you a quick explanation now. And again, in future episodes, I will be talking about these much more in depth. So number one, living more consciously or with expanded awareness. Now, you will learn as you listen to my episodes that awareness and expanded awareness is key to new ways of being. you have to be more aware generally. And that means of yourself, especially of your inner self, but also of your outer self, of the world, etc. And you can only live more consciously by being more aware. The second is presence. And this is presence as Eckhart Tolle uses that term. It means present moment awareness, but actually it means much more than that. And he really defined that in his book, The Power of Now. And he talks about it a lot, but it is being so fully aware in the present moment that it shifts you out of the mode of thinking and into the mode of awareness. And when you're wrapped up, by the way, in thinking, your mind is wanting to go churn and think thought, this and that. That is not a true part of your consciousness. Thinking is a tool that we can use. When we say we are a body, mind, and spirit, spirit is our essence, our core. That's who we really are. And body and mind are tools that help us experience it in the physical realm here on Earth. So, at any rate, presence is a very powerful way of being. I have very much learned to practice presence in the way that Eckhart Tolle taught it. So if you're familiar with that, great. If not, we will be talking about it more. Another one is being universal love. To be embodied, to embody universal love or unconditional love. And many spiritual people do that. It's a powerful way of being. I will talk about it more. I've talked about it in my other podcast in a huge number of episodes. It's a very powerful way of being. Here's another very powerful way. That is awakening, or being in the state of awakeness, which means aware of your divine nature, aware that you are more than your body. But when we talk about those two terms, awakening or awakeness, those have many, many different definitions for many different people. Awakening comes with many different kinds or levels of insight. It comes in many different forms. So we will be talking about awakening and awakeness a lot. Another way of being is healing energy awareness, being aware of the energy in our body and being aware of how energy has the potential to help us heal in our body. And it actually can also heal our mind and spirit. So that's another way of being. It's one that's been fairly new for me. I've in my Our Spiritual Life podcast, I've interviewed energy healers, and I've come to learn that understanding our energy and feeling our energy is quite important. And it was something that I was not really tuned into until more recent times. Another way of being is living in the empowered, creative state of the quantum field. Now, you may have been hearing, certainly if you're a serious spiritual student, you've heard a lot about the quantum field, but many people have very different understandings of what the quantum field is. And only a few teachers, I think, really teach this well about how to live in an empowered state of the quantum field. So that's something we will explore in a future episode. Divine presence. Now, divine presence is something a little bit more than presence, as I previously mentioned. It's sometimes also called the I am presence, being present to the knowing that I am part of the divine. I am a part of God. And I have, as a result, powers from the divine, especially related to creativity and creation. So we'll be talking about that. Another state of being is oneness, which is unity with the divine and all people, and actually with all of life. And when we just understand that we are part of the divine, then this particular aspect becomes very important. It means that every other person, and in fact, every other being, every other thing, is a part of the divine. So we are all part of this one great consciousness. I could say this one great being. People think about God or the divine in many different ways, and we'll be talking about that in episode 2. But so many people in spiritual development are all about themselves, me experiencing God, or me experiencing spiritual growth. Well, it's very, very important. In fact, now it's more important than ever for every one of us to understand that the whole world, every other person, is part of the divine. And if we don't respect a person, we are in effect disrespecting the divine, disrespecting ourselves, because we are all one. So we will explore that in future episodes. Now, another way of being I would call advanced co-creation. That's becoming more into our creative power and our ability to know at a deeper level, such that it results in what people would call magic or miracles or mastery of spiritual development. So we will certainly be talking about that. It's really like, it really is the law of awareness or manifestation, but understood at a deeper level. Heaven on earth as a state of consciousness. Now, going down the road in the future episodes, I will probably be talking about this quite a bit more. I think this is something that's quite important. We can experience for ourselves heaven on earth if we step into that state of consciousness. Now, it's going to be a long time before all people share the idea of heaven on earth. So everyone right now that wants to step into heaven on earth consciousness is creating it within themselves. And something that's really important to understand in the creative process, using our creative power, is that we must first create what we want to create in ourselves as an inner creation before it can become an outer creation. So we'll talk about that. Another way of being is self-realization. Now, that's kind of always, that term has been another term for awakening, or also God realization. But it really is a level of awakening that is at a higher level. And it's the full knowing that you create the world around you. So that takes quite a bit of explanation. Most people think, what are you talking about? The world is what it is. And once you really begin to awaken, no, you begin to understand that God wants everyone to have the power to create their own experience, which is their own version of the world. And so we will explore that. Look forward to that. That then is getting into very powerful ways of being. Another is unity consciousness, and what is a new term that is called unibeing, in which, because we are all one, we are all arising out of one universal consciousness. As we awaken more and more, then we will come into the realization that we are part of this divine unity, and we can experience being one with another person so deeply that we are then aware of our beingness together. So we will explore that. And then finally, the last one that I list, I call wholeness. And that's very much in the way that Deepak Chopra uses the word, but it means bringing all separation and all ideas of separation and all expressions of separation to an end in our experience. Quantum physicists discovered in the early 20th century that the universe was not totally kind of what would be a way of saying it, individualized, everything separate from everything else except by interaction. And they learned, no, that all of existence is arising out of the quantum field, and therefore it is a wholeness. And many cosmologists and physicists have come to understand, oh, wow, that shifts my whole understanding of the universe. It's all arising as this wholeness. And therefore, we have to begin to think about how we're participating in that wholeness in a different way. So let me say this about that list that I just gave you, that list of, I think it's 14 new ways of being. First of all, this is not set in stone by any means. I may add or take away as we go forward in the future of this podcast. But I will probably talk about all of these. I'm probably more likely to add to the list. These new ways of being are states of consciousness or states of awareness. And there are no clear-cut definitions of those that I can give to you right at this moment. Maybe over time I can come to refine my understanding to the point of trying to put down a hard definition on paper. But therefore, they also, they can be defined in different ways. Those definitions might change, and certainly how we think about it, there's just a lot of overlap between these ways of being. But I would say this, generally, the frequency of vibration or energy or level of consciousness increases as you go down that list. All right. So kind of let me summarize a little bit about new ways of being. We're talking about, and we'll be talking about in all episodes, about raising your energy vibration and level of consciousness and being more aware of your beingness and of what you want to experience. So just taking that for the statement that I just made there, you can, if you dig into that, you can see, wow, that is big. That, if you really explore that, that's deep. That is something very important. The more that you can be true to your own power, to your own level of consciousness, your own level of being, and step up to higher levels of being over time. And because beingness is totally connected to how you experience life, then we're talking about changing that. We're talking about changing how we experience life. And when enough people expand their levels of consciousness, humanity as a whole will evolve to a higher level of existence, or higher levels. There's not just one higher level, there's an infinite sequence, probably. We will know as we learn to continue to grow in our consciousness. So why would we want to do that? Higher states allow not just steady growth, but even quantum leaps in our awareness, in our understanding, in our ability to empathize with the world around us. And these states of being, we feel very much. Our body gives us a way to feel into this, and spiritual students, spiritual seekers probably know that when you have awakenings and insights, it gives you these very pleasurable feelings in your body and in your beingness. And they allow us to live more consciously, effectively, and compassionately. And they hold the potential for creating a much better world. And I think anyone listening to this podcast, that's something that you probably want. Most people want change in themselves and in the world, because they see the world's not the place we'd like it to be right now. Most people are fairly caring people, and they care about seeing the world as a whole being a better place. And most people at some level want their own life experience to be better as well. And so I'm including that. As you experience spiritual growth, it is like practical personal development and new ways of experiencing the world that you're lifting. Spirituality can no longer be thought of as something totally separate from practicality. No, they are totally tied together, because it's who you are. We're talking about who you are as a being. All right, let me go on and finish this introduction. So in the New Ways of Being podcast, we will explore these new ways of being in depth over time. I understand that people are at greatly different states of development. And so different people need different approaches to thinking about these things, to thinking about different ways of being. So I will offer a wide variety of content about these ways of being, and I'll provide people in what I share with different paths to awaken and evolve. And by the way, I would like to emphasize, as soon as we get into developing new, higher ways of being, that's totally tied to the evolution of your consciousness and to the evolution of human consciousness as a whole. So we're talking about something big here. I also want to say that I hold great love and respect for all my listeners. I want to share and help you share and experience more joy in your life. So I will seek to help you experience more fullness, more understanding, more joy in your life. So I am very excited to be introducing you to New Ways of Being, the podcast, in this first episode. Now, some episodes will be me sharing ideas, my own experiences, and what I've learned from others, and about new ways of being from them. But like I'm doing now, I'll be in many episodes, I'll be talking to you in that episode. But in other episodes, I will have guests to provide broader and deeper points of view and experiences, and just to make it more interesting and lively. So New Ways of Being will be broad spectrum. We're going to get into a lot of different things and help you think about new things and think about new ways of being. And I want to make my episodes enjoyable as well, not just educational, but enjoyable. So my goal is for you to experience new ways of being that are increasingly at higher, more powerful, peaceful, and joyful states, and so that you can grow from those. Now, note that there are many wonderful teachers and resources that I have learned from, and I will draw on in exploring these new ways of being in depth. And so let me just give you a list of some of those to give you a feeling for this. I mentioned Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species by Neale Donald Walsch. That's going to be a very important one because from his conversations with God, we have a huge amount of information directly from God to help us understand how we can awaken and experience life and enjoy life in better ways. And I'll also look at other books that Neale Donald Walsch has channeled or written, and he's got quite a list. And some provide other kinds of information that's really good to know and share. And so I'll be drawing on those. Another book, and actually the book Meta Human and numerous other books by Deepak Chopra are resources I will use. Also from Deepak Chopra, he has a newsletter called Reinventing Life, and it's published on LinkedIn. It is an incredible resource for understanding the human nature, human behavior, and what evolution is, what universal consciousness is, and especially understanding that the the universe is, in its essence, is consciousness itself. And the more that we can bring that knowledge into ourselves, the faster we can experience new ways of being. There's a book called The Wisdom of the Council, which was channeled by Sarah Landon. That is an incredible resource. There's another book called The Dream, the Journey, Eternity, and God. That is by Sarah Landon together with the spiritual teacher, Mike Dooley. Mike Dooley served as the I guess I could say the question asker, like kind of directed to a panel discussion or whatever, but he asks questions, and the council, which are advanced beings in the universe, and they seem to be beings who have experienced life on Earth. That book's another wonderful resource. Something else that's good to know about that I'll draw from and at least mention probably fairly often. There's an organization called Humanity's Team that is all about these same things, learning to live consciously and to evolve. And they have an initiative going on. It's called the Changing Humanity's Future. And so I will draw on them and their resources as well. I am a member. I belong to Humanity's Team. And I will certainly be in future episodes, maybe mentioning it a little bit more about that. But I would urge all people to join Humanity's Team. It's free. There's a book called The Ultimate Answer is Inside by Joshua Bloom, and it's an incredible resource for understanding quantum energy and quantum energy transformation. Another book is We Consciousness. It was written, and portions of it were channeled by Karen Noe. It's another great resource. There's a spiritual teacher named Craig Hamilton, and I will draw on some of his programs and writings, and probably in particular a program of his called Integral Enlightenment, and it's very much about awakening and evolution of consciousness. There are two books that many people know. One is A Course in Miracles. Another is A Course of Love. And I may talk about, insights from those two books occasionally. But also there are numerous other writings and teachers by many other authors and teachers that I will draw on use. It won't be just me and my own thoughts. It's very important. I believe in having a very broad, in studying anything in a broad way, and not just being locked into what one particular person has to say. So I think that's important. Now, I also want to mention that the podcast will be supported by an online community in the near future. And that's because in this podcast, information sharing or teaching, I could say, is very much a one-way type of thing. But a community is important because it allows two-way sharing and conversations, questions and answers, provision of additional content, and actual discussions about what I'm saying in specific episodes, and also to talk about what people are experiencing personally when they are exploring getting into these new ways of being. Now, please note that I am hoping that you will greatly appreciate the new ways of being podcast and the associated community, and that you will see the value of those and their applicability in your life. Now, that's of course, the most important part. Um, you would want to participate in this because you want to change life, to experience life more and in better ways, and to change the world. And so I hope that you will appreciate what I'm sharing. I love all of my listeners and will do everything I can to help you experience new ways of being that give you those new life experiences. And in return, I ask that please become a supporter, if you can, by pledging a monthly amount to make new ways of being possible, and to make it everything you want and need it to be. So I plan to launch this on Podbean, and it will provide a way for you to become a supporter in that way. So I hope that many of you do that. It will help me make this possible. Now, upcoming in episode 2, I will explore 2 really big questions. Number 1, who are we? And number 2, what is awakening? And I touched on those today, but I will explore those in episode 2 in greater detail. And I will explore some of the implications of the answers that I give you about those questions. In episode 3, I'm going to explore how guidance from ascended masters can speed up our process of evolution and let us experience life in profoundly more joyful ways. So look forward to those. And to conclude, let me say this. May you awaken to your true divine self. May you know great love and joy. May you know yourself as a creator within your own creation of what you create in the world. May you experience a wonderful life with everything you desire, and may you participate ever more fully in the evolution of human consciousness.